The United States is intensifying the fight against ISIS by sending an additional 250 Special Forces troops to Syria. President Obama made the announcement today. He told our Charlie Rose, though, that there will be limits to how they engage the enemy. And Charlie just spoke with the president in Hanover, Germany. Here is part of that interview.
Let me start, if I may, about the announcement that you are sending 250 Special Forces to Syria. What does that represent?
It represents what I've said from the start, which is that us dismantling ISIL is a priority, and although we are not going to be sending ground troops in to fight, we are going to try to find out what works and then double down. And one of the things that's worked so far is us putting special forces in for training and advising of local forces, but also intelligence gathering. One of the challenges of mounting a fight against a group like ISIL that embeds itself with civilian forces. They're not isolated, they're not out in remote areas where we can just hit them on their own. So having people who develop relationships with local tribes, with people who may be going in and out of places like Raqqa, us being able to distinguish between those who we can work with and those we can't, all that's really important.
Will they be engaged in any search and kill missions?
Yeah, I'm not going to go into the details of all the mission sets that they're involved with. As a general rule, their role is not to engage directly with the enemy, but rather to work with local forces. That's consistent with our overall policy throughout.
Well, earlier I spoke with Charlie on the phone about his interview with the president.
I think what's interesting to me is that this was a trip that began in Riyadh, and he met some of America's Arab allies and questions about Iran and his commitment to engage on their behavior and other things. And then he went to London and he saw the Queen and he saw the Prime Minister and he got involved in the question of leaving the European Union. He's here talking about trade and meeting with Merkel, but what's interesting about this announcement is that clearly the president wants to ratchet up a bit the use of American personnel. He clearly said in press conference here that he does not believe, and we're moving, so I may not hang up after this. He said, we clearly do not believe that anybody in the West should put ground troops on the ground in Syria, but we're using special forces because of a range of things. I then asked him about search and destroy. He said, no, search and kill. And he said no, but Ash Carter has said some interesting things about that in an early interview with me. The president on this trip, I think, is reassuring allies. He's looking for a common strategy. He very much believes that these kinds of problems demand, united action. So he's here meeting today before he left the Prime Minister of Great Britain, the Prime Minister of Italy, the President of France, talking about, among other big issues, ISIS and also migration and refugees. And I asked him about Putin, and he talked about how Putin wants to divide Europe in part, and how they will try to meet that challenge. So here he is in 3 or 4 different cities. They're talking about American leadership, common problems, including trade. He's very strong on trade. Made a speech saying that not only is it important to have a trade agreement with Asia, the TPP, but also important to have a trade agreement with the European Union.
The president's plan has major ramifications for the global fight against ISIS. Earlier, I got some insight from our senior national security correspondent, David Martin.
By putting more special forces in, you are essentially expanding your ability, one, to get ground truth, find out who the commanders are, talk to them directly, tell the commanders what days would be a good day to undertake an operation, because on that day we can give you a lot of air support. Look at the troops, talk to the commanders, find out what they really need as opposed to what they say they need, because usually militias ask for very high-tech weapons when what they really need are maybe radio sets and very pedestrian things like that. And then organize supply convoys to deliver those supplies either by airdrop or simply by road convoy. So you're taking what was really a very small effort, almost a proof of concept effort with just those 50 special forces who were in Syria, and now expanding it to something that is sort of closer to the size of the problem. Their primary specialty is working with foreign militaries, in this case these Syrian militias, and trying to train them and get them into a coherent force that can carry out a coherent strategy.
You can see more of Charlie Rose's interview with President Obama tonight on the CBS Evening News with Scott Pelley, here on CBSN, and tomorrow on CBS This Morning.